Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of Be Relentless with Ananya Siriki. Today, we have the extremely hardworking, successful, and charismatic Shubham Bhandari. Shubham is the founder of SportShack Wellness, a fitness company which has transformed cardiovascular health of over 2,000 people across 4 countries. He also got into the Indian School of Business, one of the top B schools in the country. He attended a few weeks at college there and got the opportunity to go to INSEAD, one of the best B schools in the world. Stay tuned to hear more about how he transformed his vision into reality. Hi Bhaiya, it's amazing to have you here. Okay, so let's go back a few years to 2016. You're just out of college, you've got a very good placement, very rare placement, and it's just not fitting well with you. You're bound to do well in the corporate world, but you left that safety net of having a stable income. What was the incentive for leaving?
Okay, okay, fine. So, first of all, thank you for having me. So, I'd like to say that when I was working, when I was in college, and then when I passed out and back, is that the value that comes from the job or from things that you achieve in life usually come from the fact that people around you create that value. So when I got Volkswagen, I thought that okay, only a couple of people from my college had gotten the job. So I thought that wow, this is a great job and I want to do it. And everybody around you starts congratulating you, and then you start feeling that wow, you have really accomplished something. And then you start feeling this sense of pride and this sense um, of achievement. And so that's why I took up the job, because I thought that wow, this is great, everybody wants it, and then now I've gotten this job. But the moment you join the company or any job for that matter, things normalize very quickly. The reason they normalize is because now you're working with 3,000 people, all of whom have got that job, right? So the reason uh, the reason I work is because I am a mechanical engineer, and getting a job in the core field, like mechanical engineers, the mechanical engineering nahi karte. So essentially, I got a job, and that's why I joined, because that was core to my field. And that's, other than that, there was nothing like around my passion or anything. For the reason why I joined.
So, how did you make the decision of leaving? Because especially such a rare opportunity, and what gave you the guts to leave and choose happiness over what you actually wanted to follow over?
I think at I was 21, a lot of people give me credit, or a lot like friends, family telling me that oh, I was brave or I had courage. But really, at that age, um, you have nothing to lose. Like you really have nothing to lose. And not trying then and trying, like, in fact, it takes courage to do it when you're like 35 and have a family and little kids. When you have responsibility, it's much more difficult then. So when I, of course, not because I knew what I wanted to do with my life, but mainly because I realized what I didn't do. So I'll tell you the story. What happened? It took a couple of months to set up everything, to set up like the systems, the processes, and involve me into the company. But then I saw that every time it's 1:30, people are like, everybody's getting up and going and having lunch. 2:30, everybody is coming back to work. The people used to work till 5 p.m. I remember like 4:50, 4:55 people used to line up to check out, just so that at 5, and then everybody does their fingerprint so that they can leave. And I felt like it's a good company to work with, possibly for a lot of people, but a lot of people also didn't want to be there. So eventually I started projecting myself down the line. Like in corporate, what you usually can do is 10 years down the line, you know what your life will look like, because there are people who joined 10 years down.
Yeah.
So that, thinking about that, I started feeling like this is not something that I really wanted to do with my life. And eventually all the hype that was created around me getting the job faded very quickly. Like, you never want to do something just because people are saying it's great. So so everything dies down very quickly. And then I spoke to my boss one day. I sat him down and I said, this is not something that I feel like, that I see myself doing. I don't see myself doing this. And he tells me, so we used to sit a cubicle. 3,000 people used to work at the company. 4 people I used to work with the finance department. I used to sit in a corner. My boss used to sit, and 2 more of my superiors. We used to sit in this square, right? And which is like we are 5 feet apart from each other. A square 5 by 5 foot cubicle. And I remember telling him that, look, I really don't see myself working here for very long or for the next few years. And he said, look, Shubham, you've gotten a job. Very few people have that opportunity. And if you really work hard and you pursue it with your heart, I know for a fact that 10 years down the line, maybe you will even be in my place. And that like let that light bulb go off. 10 years down the line, I don't want to sit 5 feet from where I'm sitting currently. And then that's how I made the decision to leave, not knowing what I wanted to do, but knowing what I did.
That's actually I think it's on your WhatsApp. 10 years ago, you wish you started today.
Yeah, yeah. That's why WhatsApp. Yeah, correct.
Okay, so soon after you left your job, of course, you didn't know what to do. You sure what you didn't want to do. So, what gave birth to this idea of SportShack running?
Yeah. So I used to run in college. I enjoyed the sport, not because I was running competitively, but it always gave me a space to be with myself if I wanted to, with friends if I wanted to, and it was relaxing. It used to help me clear my mind. It makes us feel good.
Of course.
That's essentially why I did, and that's with all sports actually. And running was just coincidental. It could have been swimming, it could have been cycling, it could have been anything. But running was very simple. Like you just put on a pair of shoes and you're out the door, right? So when I left, I was sitting at home and I was thinking about, like, I used to run but do nothing other than that for at least a couple of months. And during this time, I started thinking about what I really wanted to do, and I realized that I like building things. I don't know what. It's not important. Like, I feel like looking back, I never had a passion about this sport to say, but I love the sport. But the passion was about building something. And as time passed, I realized that, okay, there are so many children, like in the township that we live in. There were so many children who used to sit at home, be inside their, like, be on their mobile phones all the time. I remember all day, and it's not surprising, right? Like, I mean, there are adults who cannot get off of their phones, so it's too much to ask from children in the first place. The reward mechanisms, the games, they are the reward system, the feedback loop. It's so strong that it's very difficult to
Get
break
out of that loop.
Yeah, unless you're forced to. But even if you're forced to and you don't have an alternative, then eventually you're going to come back to it. And parents are going to constantly have a difficult time. So I realized that, okay, there is this reward loop that children and all adults really enjoy. But then there is also this sport that will really, really help people, help children improve their physical health, but also bring them outdoors, right? So that's when I started reading a lot. I started talking to people about how they would build a model around it, and then that's how I built the gamified model of SportShack, where we have leagues, ratings, the club currency, which eventually became virtual. So I thought about all these things, and I built that. So the same points, leagues, ratings that were in mobile phones, they were now built into a system, but to earn them, you had to run.
Work for it.
Yeah, you had to work for it. So that's when I started. That's how the idea was born. I built the game, and I wasn't expecting to make money out of it. The only thing was that I expected it to essentially bring people out and just test something that I built myself. So that's what I did over the next couple of months leading folks.
I so vividly remember I was standing in the park with a friend of mine, and you with a backpack, all excited, come up to me, and you're like, "Hi guys, I'm Shubham. I've got this SportShack club, this, and I'm like,
Hi.
"Oh my God, who's this? So cool!" And I think I obviously I didn't know who you were and how old you were, and one day I was running with you in the society. And I asked you, which school are you in? And you were like, I'm not in school. Achha, which college are you in?
Yeah.
I'm not in college. How old are you?
Yeah, I remember.
I think it was crazy to me that, like, how it's such a courageous step to take. And especially
Yeah.
No one around me has done something like that.
I think more and more people will be doing that now. And it's not me. I found that inspiration because I was constantly reading or I heard stories about people who started businesses. I used to read a lot, and that's where I drew my inspiration from. But you're right, like, just if you're surrounded by everybody who is working in a company, in a corporate job, there's nothing wrong with it. It's right, but at least they should be aware of the alternative. And it is a risk, of course. And a lot of people say that it's really hard and it's very risky. First of all, a lot of the part of a business being hard comes from the risk, and but there is tremendous upside. So while you're saying it's a courageous step, you also do it because you know that there is an upside. So coming back to where I built the game and started, like I'll give you an example of what happened on the first couple of days. I distributed about 60 or 65 flyers throughout the township, throughout wherever we stayed, 65, and everybody was very, very keen on joining. Like, everybody was like, wow, this is great. I felt great about it. So it was supposed to happen the following day. The following day at 5 p.m., when it was organized, I went downstairs and just 3 kids showed up. And that was like a huge blow that, 65 people were interested and just 3 people showed up. And like, what happened, what went wrong, and you start questioning yourself, but then you immediately have to snap out of it because 3 people are there, right?
Yeah.
And the 3 are there because they're expecting something from you, and they're excited for it. So you immediately, what you do is what I did actually was that I conducted a basic time trial for them. Again, saying that none of this was happening to build a company or make money. The point was simply that I wanted to implement the system that I built. So that's how I started with 3 people, and things just took off from there slowly. Took a lot of patience, but day 1 was already a setback. Yeah.
But the dots connected backwards.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs.
Now that I look back, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all makes sense. But I think it does for everyone.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can always connect the dots.
Okay, so you've trained so many people, you've seen so many people grow. What is the difference you've seen in people, not just physically, but like holistically, like discipline? Are they happier? Like after joining SportShack, after running, after waking up at 5 a.m. to go on a run? What's the difference you see?
So I can't tell you how satisfying this journey has been. Like, extremely satisfying, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. I think what happened was that you set out to bring children outside their comfort zone, and the goal was to eventually the children grew to 10 to 20, and then eventually we had 100 plus people, and we had a team which is amazing, which still works with us today. And I realized that what came out of it for children was that generally you want to keep people in the state of flow. What that is if things are too easy in a game, then you're going to stop playing it because it gets boring. But if things are too difficult, you're going to give up also. You need to be challenged in the perfect way so that you keep going because you want to do better, right? So what I realized is that it's not like children don't want a challenge, and it's also not like you have to hold a child's hand and guide them through everything. I feel like what I realized is that children are capable of doing so much more than we give them credit for. And when we started, I remember that there were days when, I remember so vividly that there were days when you and all the other members also, there were difficult challenges where you had to do a 3-kilometer run, and I remember running around it and people just breaking down into tears, because it was so difficult. And you tell them that they did a great job if they did. If not, you tell them that it's okay, and you let them deal with it. You don't tell them that it's okay and you don't reward them with something else, because in life,
Don't get
you're
rewards
not
for
gonna,
everything.
you're not going to get rewarded if you haven't done a good job. And I feel like you don't want to build confidence on something that
That's fake.
yeah, the foundation has to be grounded on something solid. So even if, so there were children who, like, I remember there is this thing that I have noticed over the years, that children who accomplish something and the children who didn't accomplish something, the people who didn't accomplish had a far higher motivation of continuing. And the people who accomplished something got this sense of satisfaction immediately, and that reward, automatically they get that dopamine hit from that reward, like, oh, I accomplished it. And then you don't feel like necessarily coming out the next day because
Pushing yourself.
you don't
further.
feel like pushing yourself further because you have a sense of accomplishment. The
Achieve
people,
something.
correct. But really, when your question, coming back to your question where you're asking about what you saw in children, I saw that despite children breaking down into tears, and it's not like I'm saying that children should break down into tears or they should be pushed that much, but just that they pushed themselves to that limit because they thought that they could do better, and they cried maybe because they were disappointed that they didn't do it, or because sometimes of happiness that they did it. And I remember those moments, and it really surprised me that just the next day when you have training again, the same people who broke down into tears because they didn't achieve something,
They show up.
they show up, and you don't force them to show up, they just show up. And that's something that's what resilience is, that's what discipline is. You need to enjoy something and not just do it for the reward. If they did it for the reward, then that day should have been their last day, but they don't, because they enjoy the entire process. And so I realized that children should enjoy the process of what they're doing. And also I realized that resilience and discipline that you develop through sport translates into all other aspects of it.
Everything.
Yeah, all aspects of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So actually, I have such a vivid memory. So a friend of mine, I am someone who can sleep all day long if you ask me to. And a friend of mine asked me, why do you wake up at 5 a.m. to run? I mean, there have been days when we've woken up at 3 a.m. to go for a marathon. And I just remember, I think this was in the peak of lockdown and we hadn't run in such a long time together. And 30-40 of us gathered together to run. And we were at the start line. And everyone around me just started cheering and hooting because we were running together after such a long time. And in that moment, I remember thinking to myself, how can anyone choose sleeping over this?
Yeah.
It was truly so magical, and I'm like, how was I sleeping instead of doing this?
Yeah.
So I think
You
it's
need to try it to know it.
so rewarding.
Yeah.
What are your tips for someone who might pick up running or start running?
I think whether you pick up running or any sport, I think you should realize that initially you're always going to pick up quickly, and you're going to love any sport that you take up because you're going to learn it quickly. Even if you're taking up running, swimming, whatever you take up, basketball, you're going to learn pretty quickly because the learning curve in the beginning is always steep. Eventually, you need to realize that it's going to get difficult, and it should get difficult, but that's what
tests
your discipline, and that's what builds your resilience. So my advice would be to just enjoy the process. Know that it's going to be difficult at some point, but some days are going to be just fantastic. And
make it through the tough times.
Yeah, make it through the tough times. And make it through the tough times, no? Just because without that you will never get to the good times either. You can't just have the good part. And sport is about that. Sport is like, my advice is to find community. And other than finding community, I feel like just do it because you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, try some other sport, but make sure that you are doing it because you have, like, I'm saying, try different sports, and then you settle on one. If you are asking for advice for running specifically, my advice is simply to just put on a pair of shoes,
Go out there
and discover it for yourself. Yeah.
So I think the community community thing you said, it is such an important thing. Like I know so many people from SportShack, but there are quite a few new people, and they don't know me per se, but they've seen me in and around.
Yeah.
And when they see me running in the society, they might not know my name, but every single person from SportShack who sees me, they'll say, "Come on," or "Keep going."
Yeah.
And it's just so good to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Community does that.
Sport really unites people. Like
Yeah.
it brings people together. There are like just random people playing on a football field in some other country, and the entire world is involved.
Awesome.
Can you believe that? What else can do that other than sport?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, you've seen so many sports, especially running. How do you think mindset affects your performance in sports?
I think it's a two-way street. Your mindset, when like I'll tell you a couple of things that were markers for us as SportShack went ahead. That the people who were very very eager to join, the people who just couldn't wait, are the people who also quit very easily. Because what you realize in that moment where they can't wait to join is that they are not patient, and the mindset is that you need to have the mindset of patience. You need to be patient, and eventually everything else will fall in place, because the mindset that you develop, the reward that you get from running, is going to come from running.
Delayed gratification.
Yeah, delayed gratification, exactly. Yeah. I mean, obviously every run feels great, completing every run feels good, but it only feels good after the suffering. If a run was easy, it may not feel that good, but a difficult run could feel very good.
Absolutely.
Right?
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's one example of how mindset directly translates to sport. We have seen over the hundreds of people that have come into SportShack, we have seen that people who have been like, cried to their parents that they just want to join today because their friends are a part of it. They're just doing it in the heat of the moment, and that happens with so many things in life, right? Like, I feel like that is something that I have also learned over time, that if you can't wait for something, you should rather wait and think of it, think about it, and then, or just wait, just wait. And if you really want it 5-6 days later, then you go for it. Yeah.
That's actually so relevant, and I've never thought about it before.
Yeah. We realized we stumbled upon it actually.
Okay, so recently you stepped down as the CEO of SportShack because you were joining ISB, Indian School of Business,
Yeah.
one of the top colleges in India. What was it like making that decision? Leaving behind, not behind, but having that time apart from something you've created and spent so much time into growing.
Yeah.
I know it was tough, but like, what was going through your mind when you were making that decision?
I think the most important thing when you leave a company is not the company, because what is a company? A company is the people, and it's like just working with just amazing people who are at SportShack. Stepping down and just being distant from the company after, like, this has been my entire career, right? Like, this is all I've really done, and just leaving it has been extremely difficult. Like, it's been so difficult. I know that there are so many moments throughout this entire process where I've just broken down into tears, because I never thought that I'd have to do it. But I realized that to grow in a certain way, like, I really want people to experience what it is like to just run, or just experience a new sport, or develop good cardiovascular fitness or health. And there are so many people out there who we can help, but I don't have a business background in my family, and I realized that all the decisions that I've made so far with the team, we've made them based on intuition and gut feeling, with just a surface level knowledge of business. So I thought that if I had to build a global business, eventually you cannot build it on a rocky foundation. And that's why that decision was so crucial, because leaving SportShack is important at this point to hopefully grow it in the future. Yeah. Otherwise, there'll be like if somebody out there needs help and we can't help them, it's not their fault that they didn't find us. It's just that we didn't find them. Yeah.
Very bold step, but I'm sure again the dots will connect looking back.
Yeah. I'm
hope so.
Always hopeful of that. Yeah.
Okay, so what was your application process into ISB like for anyone who's potentially wanting to apply there?
Okay. So ISB has you have to give the GMAT and the IELTS as a language requirement. Yeah. Other than that, you have the process. So the reason ISB was such a great experience is primarily because of the kind of people they bring together, and their screening process creates that pool of people because every person that comes in has to write an essay about multiple essays about different aspects about life. What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? What is it that you would like to achieve in the coming years? Just having that clarity. People need not stick to their goals or stick to the vision because people change, circumstances change, you discover new things. But just a general idea of where you want to go. So the process is first of all getting a decent score in the GMAT, which the requirement that ISB has, I feel like most people over time, like if they put enough effort, it's easily doable. The same for the IELTS. The essays are where the differentiation happens. Like not everybody with a high GMAT score can get into the top college, because if that was the case, then there wouldn't just be 800 or 900 people from all over India. There would be far more. But the reason there aren't is because they're trying to see what your story is, and you need to have a story which is convincing, unique, but also at the same time honest. I think when you read something and something isn't honest or doesn't make sense, like you fill out an entire application, right? When you're writing your essays and you're filling out things about how school was, while you studied, what languages you speak, if everything doesn't cohesively come together, then you may not know what it is, but you know that something isn't right. So you have to be very, very honest, and I highly recommend being honest, because if you are not a good fit for the school, then it's better that you know, because you are going to spend a lot of money. So if the school thinks you're not a good fit, then so be it. And you'll find a place that you're a good fit at. But you don't want to just do something just to get into a college or a school.
Just for the brand name.
Just for the brand name. You want to be a good fit. Yeah, so I recommend being honest and telling your story the best you can.
What was your experience at ISB like? And what actually makes ISB so wonderful and amazing?
I think I was there for 6 weeks. So I really, while I did experience it firsthand, I haven't experienced the entire year. So whatever I say should be taken with a pinch of salt. But I enjoyed my time at ISB. It's a fantastic campus, a fantastic school. It's in Hyderabad, Mohali. I know that everybody had a great time. I think ISB really puts you into the grind. I remember the first couple of weeks I must have slept for like 4 or 5 hours on average. Max I must have slept like 6.5. It's but the thing is that you want to do it. You don't feel tired in the day. You wake up 4 hours later, you have work or you have some kind of activity and you're ready for it. So ISB, I'll tell you what I think makes ISB great is that not necessarily the teaching, which is great, but that's not the reason. It's not the teaching, it's not the amazing campus, it's not the just the facilities that we have. It's the people. When you're at ISB, I realized that people there are very, very, have first of all done a variety of things. Extraordinary things. Like when I joined ISB, I was like, wow, I got into ISB, this is a great college, and suddenly you go there and realize that no matter what you've achieved, there's always somebody who's done insane things. I remember
bigger fish.
Yeah, there is always a bigger fish. So one person in my cohort was a rocket scientist from ISRO, and there was one person from the IBL. There were people who had like people give the CA exam, and like it's difficult to clear it. Like the levels of it's very difficult to clear it in the first shot. Like one of my friends was somebody who ranked all India 8th in that exam. So it's suddenly you start realizing that it's very, very humbling. Like, okay, like really what have I done? Like, do I even belong here? And the thing is that 600 people of the Hyderabad campus collectively feel like they are imposters. And but eventually you meet people and you talk to them and you realize that at a human level everybody is the same. Like everybody is the same. There may be people who have achieved insane things, people who are extremely smart, people who like essentially were very passionate about what they did. But in the end, when you have a conversation with them at a human level, everybody is the same and they are just great. And the way they communicate, especially the people who come into ISB, because they have like a screening process of
articulate.
They can articulate well. Not just their essays, because ISB eventually also has an interview. So people, I realized that the best thing that I saw here was that people could communicate freely. And I think that's very important. So that's one of the main reasons why I think ISB is a great school.
Okay. Also, for anyone who's trying to get into ISB, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. It's going to be worth it. I think that it's a very good school. If you have a work, but I also recommend going there with work experience of at least 3 or 4 years, and not immediately, because you will have context of your working life. If you don't have the context of your working life and you go just 2 years after, for example, which is the minimum requirement, you wouldn't be able to relate to some of the conversations that happen in class.
Make you understand the knowledge, like actually how you apply it.
Yeah, exactly.
That was actually what I was coming to. Like, why did you wait until you were 28 to pursue an MBA? Why not before?
So I think these things, I don't think I really waited. I don't think it was planned at all. Like my goal was to build SportShack as best I could, and that's what I did. And when I realized that okay, now I want to build it to the next level, what needs to be done? And that's when I realized that okay, tomorrow if SportShack were a global company, or if I had to build a solid business out of it on a good foundation, what would I require? And it made sense to do an MBA. First of all, because of the network that you get. When I say network, I really mean friends. Because I don't think of anybody at ISB as somebody who I know or somebody who I know in my network. I've made some great friends there, and I know that it's not like, oh, I think that this person would help me in a certain way, or this person would help me in another way, or it's just about like I really enjoyed my time with them, and I know that if they ever needed something from me, I wouldn't even think before helping them. So yeah.
Okay. So you left ISB after 6 weeks, 1 term, to get into one of the best colleges in the world, INSEAD.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I think it's your dream college.
Yeah.
What was it like making that decision to leave ISB and get into INSEAD, or were you sure that this is what I want?
I think that when given the choice, if I had it before I joined ISB, INSEAD would have been a no-brainer. Like I would definitely join INSEAD simply because of not just the ranking, because rankings are different everywhere, but primarily because you get to experience different cultures. INSEAD is very international that way, like people
across the globe,
and it's not even like a 30-40% class that is from a particular nationality. It's like 10 to 12% of one nationality, nothing more. So you're studying with 70-75 different nationalities in your cohort. It's easy to work with Indians and it's our comfort space. But you also, if you want to build a global company, you also need to know what it's like to be with people from different cultures, how it's to work with them, what are our biases. Like, all of us have our biases. We have these stereotypes in our head, we have these biases about people, and it's very important, first of all, to be aware of them. and then that is what I'm expecting out of INSEAD. So but however, I got ISB first, and INSEAD I applied in the final round, so the result came later. So it was difficult. It was difficult, but then I had to make the decision to join ISB because I didn't want to wait a year. I didn't want to be away for 2 years. The reason I applied to both these colleges is because they both 1 year programs, or 10 months for NCR in fact, and that makes a lot more sense for me at this point. Uh, but when I was at ISB and when I got my NCR decision, I was excited, but then immediately I started feeling like do I really want to go? Because I was really enjoying my time at ISB, and I think I was surrounded by great people, and
Leaving them behind.
I wouldn't say leaving them behind, because I'm not. I'm definitely going to be in touch with them, and in fact, they have each other now, and I'm not in ISB, but they have each other, but I don't have any of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a really difficult decision for me, and for with something that was a no-brainer before, to make that decision after experiencing ISB was very difficult. But yeah, in the end, a lot of my friends at ISB pushed me to think more objectively, and not think about what it was like emotionally and how we were all a great group and a great team, and all the bonds that I made. I think they made me see that in the long run, we would always be friends, but INSEAD would make more sense for what I wanted to do.
For your goal.
For my goal. And I think ISB, there are so many people in ISB who left INSEAD with an ISB. So there were I know 2-3 people at least who didn't want to leave India because of their families or other circumstances, and they decided that they chose to stay in ISB. So that decision is not clear as day. It's a difficult one.
Okay. And what was the application process for INSEAD, like an international institute?
It's pretty similar because ISB is also an international school. It's recognized internationally. It's ranked top 50 in the world. And I think that the difference would be just that INSEAD had far more essays to write. They ask you about many other aspects of your life. INSEAD wants you to have some kind of international exposure, or at least have worked with people internationally. It also wants to know because it wants to create a cohort that is accepting of other nationalities and other cultures. You don't want to bring together a group of people who would eventually just Indians spend time with Indians, Americans with Americans. They want people who are truly global, who would mingle. So I think one is your international exposure. The languages you speak is a huge barrier for INSEAD that really restricts the number of applications. That you need to speak 2 languages at least and know 3 by the time you pass out of INSEAD. Yeah.
Wow.
So that is like a compulsion. So
10 months you're supposed to learn a language.
Yeah, learn a language or you learn it at home. So there are a lot of people who are just getting done with the 3rd language now before they start, because it's going to be a very rigorous course from what we've learned. Other than that, it's the same. We have a GMAT exam. So the score that we have to submit, IELTS, the application process. Also, there's a video essay before the interview. And the video essay it asks you a question and you have 30 seconds to think about your answer. And you just have to speak for, I think, a couple of minutes, I'm not sure, but around that. And they have 4 questions back to back. So that is an additional thing, which is great. I mean, in the end, if you're telling an honest story, it's not very difficult. It just comes through. Another thing that's different is ISB's interview was also conducted by alumni, but 2 of the alumni conducted it in one place. So we were called to the Taj Hotel in Mumbai, and all the applicants came to Taj and interviewed there. For INSEAD, because it's a global school, you cannot possibly have one place where you would call people, or even place around India, one place around India. So they assign alums who are in your vicinity or who are from your domain and who have at least like I had two interviews. One of the interview was taken by someone who has over 20 years experience post NCR, and one of them was taken by somebody who has about 10 years experience. So the interviews happened separately for both alums. So one was with one person who was going through what my goals are in a very systematic way, what I wanted to do in life, what my passion is, and the other person was just trying to see if there are any gaps in what I'm saying my story is. But in the end, they just want to validate that the person that is coming in truly is the person that they're saying they are through their application. Yeah. Because what you say in your application may be written by, say, a consultant, for example, and you may not be that person at all. It's very easy to spot that in an interview. So the interviewers essentially just go through the entire story, and once they go through the story, like my interviewer told me that he just understood my story, wrote about my story to NCR, and let NCR decide if the story is matched. So yeah, so the experience for interviewing was also slightly different. Yeah.
The main part is to be true, be yourself.
Absolutely.
Be real.
Absolutely. You only want something that is a good fit for you. And it's not about the school wanting you, it's also about if you want the school. And you need to realize that maybe maybe I wouldn't get ISB or maybe I wouldn't get NCR. The reason I wouldn't get them was because I wasn't a good fit. So even if I would somehow make it through by creating a compelling application or hiring a consultant, I'd go there and realize I'm not a good fit.
Wouldn't succeed there as much as
I just wouldn't feel like I belong. And 1 year and the huge tuition that these schools charge, it's not worth it. You want to go to a place where you feel like you belong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the ultimate question, what does being relentless mean to you?
Wow. I think it's just important for us to learn to deal with failure. Being relentless is not just success after success, it's failure after failure until you reach success. And these are things that we just say, like, okay, it's a stepping stone, and a lot of people just talk about these things. I have heard so many talks and so many people who inspire me who say that they've gone through failures, and no matter what anybody says, you need to realize it yourself. And at some point,
go through it.
You need to go through it. And you need to go through it and realize that, in fact, it is a stepping stone. And I'll tell you that the culture that we live in really, really appreciates people that succeed. And we don't talk as much about failure. And since we don't talk as much about failure, we don't give ourselves the room to fail. And that's why if you want to try something and you think that the odds are against you, you won't try because you don't want to be humiliated. Or not just humiliated, you don't want to be considered as somebody who failed at something. And I think if you want to do something big in life, if you want to achieve things, if you really want to see what your true potential is, how are you going to realize that without ever failing? Yeah, you're not. So if you can get through failures and know that you've learned something from them and take away the learnings and just keep going, I think that's what being relentless is.
It's falling 7 times and getting up the 8th. Right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming today, Bhaiya. I'm sure everyone who's listening, every single person is going to take away something which they can apply in their lives. So much to learn from you and from your story. And I hope you find amazing people in INSEAD and do absolutely amazing with SportShack and achieve everything you set out to.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that as a teenager, you are doing something like this, which is just amazing. Like when I was a teenager, I was not like this. Like I was far from it. So what you're doing for people and all the viewers, I think it's great.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have you here again.
I'll be happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.